Keir Starmer has just faced one of the most humiliating diplomatic rejections in recent memory. In today's video, we will be diving into the details and going through everything. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and join our fast-growing community. Just a quick one to say we do have new One Keir t-shirts available on our website. Go to britishstand.com or check the link in the description. Keir Starmer has just faced one of the most humiliating diplomatic rejections in recent memory as Russia completely dismissed his proposal for NATO-led peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. At a high-stakes press conference, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov outright rejected Starmer's idea, making it clear that any foreign troops, even under the EU or national flags, would be seen as an act of provocation by Moscow. This brutal snub comes as the United States and Russia have now agreed to fully restore diplomatic ties and begin Ukraine peace talks, a move that just months ago seemed impossible. The shocking shift in international policy has been spearheaded by Donald Trump's presidency, signaling a dramatic departure from the previous administration's stance. But here's where Starmer's embarrassment becomes even more apparent. He wasn't even in the room. At a landmark meeting in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov to lay the groundwork for potential peace in Ukraine. This is a huge moment as both countries, who have been at odds for years, are now discussing geopolitical and economic partnerships. Yet, despite European leaders scrambling in Paris to keep NATO relevant in the conversation, they were completely sidelined from the most crucial discussions. And let's be clear, this was not an accident. The Biden administration had long insisted that Ukraine must be at the table for any negotiations. Under Trump, that position has now been discarded. Ukraine was not invited. Europe was not invited. The UK, and by extension Starmer, was completely ignored. And when Starmer tried to insert himself into the conversation, suggesting British and NATO troops could help enforce a peace deal, Russia publicly humiliated him by rejecting the idea outright. Lavrov stated in no uncertain terms, the appearance of armed forces from NATO countries under a false flag, under the flag of the European Union, or under national flags does not change anything. This is unacceptable to us. In other words, Starmer's grand idea was dead before it even started. The developments in Riyadh mark a total transformation in how the US is handling the Ukraine war. Trump's directive to reopen diplomatic channels with Russia is a stark contrast to the past policies of Biden and European leaders. Marco Rubio confirmed that the first step will be to fully staff embassies in Washington and Moscow, something that has been off the table since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. He made it clear that diplomatic missions need to function normally for peace talks to move forward. This is a massive blow to European leaders, who have spent years pushing for hardline policies against Russia, and it completely sidelines Starmer, who is now left standing on the world stage with zero influence over what happens next. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been left in an impossible position. As Starmer's plan was flatly rejected, Ukraine itself was shut out of the Saudi talks entirely. Zelensky, currently visiting Turkey, made it clear that Ukraine will not recognize any deal that does not include them in the process. He doubled down on his demand for a full return to Ukraine's 2014 borders, insisting that, no matter how difficult it is for us, Ukraine will not legally recognize the parts occupied by Russia. The East is ours, Crimea is ours. But the reality is, Zelensky may not have a choice. If the US and Russia move forward with peace talks without him, Ukraine will be forced to either accept the deal on Trump's terms or be left fighting without Western support. And where does that leave Starmer? On the sidelines, powerless. While major diplomatic progress was being made in Saudi Arabia, European leaders scrambled to keep up, meeting in Paris to figure out their next move. The message from Washington was clear: Trump is willing to end US transatlantic security guarantees if Europe doesn't step up. For leaders like Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz, this is a nightmare scenario. But for Starmer, it's even worse. He staked his credibility on the idea that the UK should play a leading role in post-war security guarantees for Ukraine. He even suggested that British troops should be involved in policing a ceasefire, an idea that Russia immediately shot down. Now, with the US shifting its focus to direct diplomacy with Russia, Starmer looks completely out of touch. He tried to insert himself into the conversation. He wasn't invited. He pushed for NATO's involvement. Russia said no. He wanted the UK to lead. The world moved on without him. This is a humiliating moment for Starmer, who has now been exposed as irrelevant on the world stage. The Riyadh talks signal a new era of diplomacy under Trump, one where Starmer and Europe are being left behind. While the US and Russia shake hands on the next steps for Ukraine, Starmer has been forced to watch from the sidelines, rejected, and ignored by the very powers he hoped to influence. So what do you think? Is Starmer completely out of his depth on foreign policy? Will Trump's direct diplomacy with Russia bring an end to the war? And what does this mean for Europe's role in global security moving forward? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the latest updates. In other news, major UK electric vehicle targets could be severely compromised if Labour chooses to change a critical mandate, experts have warned. It comes as the zero-emission vehicle mandate consultation ends today, which looks at hearing from automakers about potential changes to the 2030 petrol and diesel car ban. The date, which is 5 years earlier than the 2035 date introduced under the Conservative government, would mean drivers and car manufacturers would be forced to commit to electric cars while the charging network continues to grow. Experts have now warned that if the consultation leads to a change in the mandate, it could severely compromise the existing electric car charging network, which secured £6 billion in private investment commitments for charging infrastructure deployment. Charge UK warned that any changes to the mandate would risk impacting the steady progress made by charging operators who would face huge problems in meeting the new targets. The organisation stated that reducing the expected number of electric miles driven in the coming decade would lead to slower charger deployment, increased charging costs, and a more challenging environment for EV sales rather than the desirable effect of moving motorists away from petrol and diesel cars. The public charging network has been steadily growing in the past few years, expanding by 37% in 2024 to reach nearly 75,000 charge points across the UK. Experts warned that the progress made would be in vain as it puts the UK much further behind than where it needs to be. This infrastructure growth has helped support EV adoption, with electric cars accounting for a fifth of all new car registrations in January 2025. Charge UK warned that not only will more investment be needed, but Labour may have to step in and offer more incentives for drivers. On top of urging the government to maintain the ZEV mandate targets, it also called for the levelling up of the VAT rate on public charging to 5%. The organisation backed a delay to the expensive car supplement and vehicle excise duty rate hikes, which are set to change in April. Vicky Red, CEO of Charge UK, said, "Our response to the ZEV mandate consultation is straightforward. We need to maintain and build on the conditions that have led to the recent growth in charge point deployment and that have been pivotal in supporting record levels of EV sales. The charge point industry has been working ahead of demand, installing nearly 75,000 public charge points and over 10 times as many home and workplace chargers, enabling drivers to switch to EVs with confidence." She warned that altering the mandate would negatively impact investor confidence, leading to a slowdown in rollout, higher prices for consumers, and a more challenging environment in which to sell EVs. Red added, "The charging sector is already delivering the world-class charging network that will power Britain's zero-emission future, but we can only do so with continued policy certainty." Charge UK additionally proposed limiting hybrid car sales to plug-in hybrid electric vehicles in the final few years of the ZEV mandate between 2030 and 2035 to encourage the transition to zero-emission vehicles. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.